Okay, so in this screencast, we're going to build a simple link shortener using Fancy, Sinatra, and Redis for persistence. So this is what it's going to look like. I have a version running already. Let me just show you how this works. Say we have this URL, put that in there, we hit save. It'll redirect us to this URL here, and it'll display the ID and the amount of clicks. And so the way we would actually use this then is by just going to the servers and then the ID, and it'll redirect. If we now go back and update, you'll see it updated the clicks, so it keeps track of the redirects it did. Alright, so we'll use, as I said, we'll use Redis for this, for the data, to store the links and the counters. And there's a library for that for Fancy called redis.fy that I wrote. It's pretty straightforward. You'll see how it works. We'll use Sinatra for the web app, and there's a nice wrapper for Fancy as well, which you can find on GitHub as well. And we'll use that. So let's begin. So this is the current version that's running. I'm just going to kill this now because we're going to build it from scratch. I'll just keep Redis running on localhost, and we'll start in this directory, which is empty. Not empty, I mean it has these two files, which we're going to look at now. The first file is a Fancy package specification, and this is useful if you want to have, if we use dependencies and we want to specify them. They're similar to Ruby gems, but you can just specify your dependencies here, and then within the terminal you can run fancy install --deps, and that'll get all the dependencies in the Fancy pack file, if there isn't one. Just gonna leave this, and then I have another file called html.fy, which basically just lets us generate HTML dynamically, and that's kind of useful because I don't really want to muck around with templates for this simple example. So let's get started. I'm just going to write a file called app.fy, and basically what we're going to use for sure is we're going to use Sinatra. We're going to use the HTML file that I just showed you, and we're going to use Redis. So another thing we want to use, which is a Ruby library, is the SHA-1 library, so we can have a simple hash. Basically what we're doing is going to map the URL that we want to shorten to a SHA-1 of that URL, a shortened SHA-1, because we don't want the full one, which is kind of long, but basically a short version of that. Which means that if we add the same URL again, which has been added before, it'll just convert to the same ID, which I think is fine for this example. So we'll create a Redis client here. I'll just call it capital R. And by default it connects to localhost, so I won't specify that. So we can set up some configurations for Sinatra. I'm not going to do this for now because we don't really need them. One thing I do want to do is logging, so I'm going to configure let's configure both production and development. Okay, so this is the Sinatra FY DSL, if you want to say that. Another thing, as you might have seen before, is we'll just run this on port 3000. I think the default is 4567, but I like 3000 better. I usually use that. Alright, so basically what we want to start with is the HTML generation part. I think that'll be nice. So we'll have a little helper method, which we call with layout. and that takes a body, and that's basically the body of the page that we want to inject, because we want to have the basic layout stay the same across pages, but the body obviously has to change depending on what we want to display. So it'll take a body, and the body is going to be a block that we're going to pass in. So the HTML class, we're going to use that, and basically what it does is we pass it a block taking each object, which is the HTML object itself, and on that we're going to call methods to generate the HTML. So let's create the basic HTML. Create a head with a title of, let's call this Shortify. That's what the app is called. And then I'm going to create a body, and in here we're going to have a little title so we can actually see this on the page, and then we're going to basically call the block with the HTML object. So let's basically get started with the basic routes so we can actually try this out. So for the start page with no parameters, we're just going to display this over here, the form. So we're going to use it with layout. It takes an h parameter, which is the HTML object, create a form, and we're going to pass it a hash with some attributes. So first of all, the action is going to be going to new. The method is going to it's going to go to be post, and we're going to pass it body for the form. We're going to use a field set to make it look nice. Label. Oops. Let's just skip that, I guess. We'll just have a line break, and an input field with the type being text and the ID being link, so we can refer to it, and also a name of link. And by default we want to give it a value of having the HTTP in there. I think that's nice so people don't forget it. Let's put another line break here, and then finally we have the button. Like that. I think that's pretty basic, but it works. That should do it. Let's try and run this. See what it does. Redis is still running. That's fine. So we see we're using Thin here, but you could use any rack compliant server. I just like Thin. It starts up fast. It's easy. I don't like WebBrick, and I think there's some problem with it right now, but Mongrel will work. Any basic rack server is going to work. So if you go to here now, okay, it doesn't show anything. That's interesting. Did I forget something? Oh yeah, I forgot one thing, sorry. Over here, we have to call the toS method on it, otherwise it's not going to render. Let's restart. Should do it. Oh, there we go. This looks almost like what we had before. If we look here, it's not the nicely formatted, but it's going to do the trick, so I'm not going to care about that right now. Alright, so basically what we want to do now is we want to add the new handler. So this will be a post catcher. So the link will be in the parameters. It'll be called link because we set that over here, and then we basically want to create the ID for that, and we're going to use a SHA-1 as I mentioned earlier. So we'll create a new SHA-1 from the link and convert it to a string, and then from that we'll take the first 10 or 11 characters, and we're going to set that in Redis. So we're going to call set. We're going to give it the ID and the link. Actually, we should change it a bit. Let me do one thing here. I'm going to make a helper method called key. It's going to take an ID, and we're going to create a nicer key for that, because it might conflict if we have more data in our Redis. So basically, just give it a namespace. That should do it. Okay, so we'll use that in there. And then we probably want to redirect. Yeah, let's redirect to. Remember before we had the show page, so that's what we're going to do now. We're going to say that should do it. So now we have to do a show page, and it's going to be it's going to take an ID parameter. I'm not going to check the input now. We could, if you want to be rigorous, you should probably do that, but we're not going to do it. So basically now we have to get the link out of the database, and it might not be there. So there's multiple ways to do this, but I think the best way to make sure we don't have duplication of logic is to actually write a little helper method that takes care of both cases. So that takes two blocks, one in case there's the link is in the database, and one when it's not. That way we don't have to do the checking if it's there or not in every place where we want to access it, which is usually a good idea to do. So I'm going to make a helper method that is called withLink. I'm going to put it up here again. It's going to take an ID, which is a link ID. It's going to take a block for the part if it's there, and else. It's going to take an else block. And oh yeah, by default, that should probably just return an empty string, so it'll render an empty page or something. So we basically have to check. Let me see. So we check if it's there. So basically, can you reuse that key method that gives us a key for an ID? And if it's there, we're going to bind that to a link variable, and then in there we're basically going to call the block with that link. And else, if it's not there, we're just going to call the else block. Yeah, that sounds good. All right. So in here now, we can basically do with link of that ID do given a link. We're gonna display the stats that we had. So we're gonna display the ID, the amount of clicks, which we're gonna skip for now, and in the link itself. Okay. I think it was an H2. Yeah. Whatever. The layout is not very nice, but we could add CSS later if you wanted to. Clicks I'm going to leave out for now. And I'm going to put the link in here. Okay. This should do the trick. Oh yeah, if it's not there, we're gonna redirect, I think. We could just show nothing for now, but I'm gonna do a redirect actually. To the root page. So if we try to access something that's not there, it's just gonna redirect. Okay, let's restart this. Okay. So I'm just gonna copy this again. Put that in here. Hit save. Ooh, it works. So here we have the ID. The clicks aren't there yet. I'm gonna add that later. I just could click on this, but you know that's not what we want to do. What we actually want to do is if we go here, it should redirect directly. And oh, we don't have to implement it yet, so we'll have to add that. But yeah, it seems to work. So if I enter something invalid up here, say like that, it redirects, which is exactly what we want. Very good. So now we have to do the part where it actually, when you go to that URL over here, where it redirects, which we're going to do now. So basically what we want is we have some ID and we want to basically redirect, but only if that link exists. So we will use it with link helper again. And we'll just redirect to that link. And I could just put another else here, and otherwise we'll redirect to the root page. I guess we could do that, yeah. This is actually not what I have in the current version, but I think it actually makes more sense instead of just displaying nothing. So, okay, let me see, let's restart this, try this out. Humpty Dum takes a while. Okay, so, yep, there we go. So, I might not have seen this. So we're on this page, and if I take away the show part, it actually redirects exactly how we want it. Nice. So now we can add the counter, the click counter. So what we basically want to do is we want to keep, how we're going to do this. So we'll probably want a different key for counters. So I'm just going to add a helper method here. Counter key for a given ID. And I'm just going to make the key as before, and then add a count at the end, just for namespacing basically. We'll also want a incrementer helper method for a given ID. So we'll set the we're going to call incr, which is a command Redis provides for incrementing counters, and we're going to use our helper function like that. And then we'll probably want to have another helper method that just returns the counter and returns 0 if it's not set yet, which is the case after we created that link and nobody has clicked it yet, basically. So we'll do a get here for that ID, and we'll just call 2i on that. 2i works the same as in Ruby. If it's nil, it'll just return 0, which is exactly what we want. So now we have to go into the redirect here. Before we redirect, we're just gonna increment, what did I call it? Incr counter, okay. We're gonna do that, and in here we're gonna display it. Was it counter? Yeah. Okay, let's see if this works. Restart. So if we go here, 2 clicks. Oh, this is actually from the old version. I'm gonna restart Redis actually. Make sure it's not doesn't save anything. Okay. Restart Redis. Maybe restart the app as well. This is not right, obviously. Okay. So let's see. I'm gonna add a different URL now. Let's take this one. Boom. Okay. This stays the same. If I just click on this, it's not going to do anything because I clicked it myself. But if we say post this on Twitter and somebody clicks that link, he'll get redirected. But if we now look here, we see you have one. Do it again. Boom. So yeah, there's some stuff we could like change, improve. So in case we have something, say we want to access URL that is completely invalid, like that, we just get this error page, and we might want to show a nice error page there. So what we can do here is we can add the not found handler, and we'll basically just do a simple HTML this should do it. We'll restart the app. And if we try to go there now, it should show that. And yep, so not the nicest looking page or shortener, but you know, anybody who is a designer could now come along and make it look nice. So yeah, that's it, and I hope it was interesting, and see you next time.